The notification light on my phone blinked insistently in the darkness of my dorm room, pulling me from the edge of sleep. I squinted at the screen, expecting maybe a late-night meme from one of my friends or a reminder about tomorrow's chemistry lab. Instead, I found a text from Marcus that made my heart skip in a way I'd been trying to ignore for months. "Hey, weird question, but can I crash in your room tonight? My roommate brought someone over and I really can't deal with the noise. Just this once, I promise." I stared at the message for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Marcus had been my closest friend since freshman orientation, when we bonded over our shared love of obscure indie films and our mutual inability to navigate the dining hall without getting lost. He was the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order and always had an extra phone charger when you needed one. He was also devastatingly handsome in that effortless way that made my stomach flutter whenever he smiled at me across the library table. The problem was, Marcus was straight. Completely, utterly, unquestionably straight. He'd had a string of girlfriends throughout our first year of college, each one more beautiful than the last. I'd watched him fall in love and get his heart broken, had listened to him analyze text messages from girls he was trying to impress, had even helped him pick out flowers for Valentine's Day dates. Through it all, I'd maintained the careful balance of being his supportive best friend while quietly nursing feelings that I knew could never be reciprocated. If this story hits you, drop a heart in the comments. Of course, I typed back, because what else could I say? Door's unlocked. I'll grab you an extra pillow. Within 10 minutes, there was a soft knock on my door, followed by Marcus slipping inside with a backpack slung over his shoulder and his hair disheveled from the November wind. He was wearing his favorite gray hoodie, the one that brought out the green flecks in his hazel eyes, and old jeans that had seen better days. Even in his casual, slightly frazzled state, he looked like he'd stepped out of some indie film about beautiful, troubled college students. "You're a lifesaver," he said, dropping his bag by my desk chair. "I owe you big time. Jake's been bringing different people over every night this week, and I haven't gotten a decent night's sleep since Monday." I watched him survey my small single room, taking in the unmade bed, the stack of textbooks on my nightstand, the string lights I'd hung around the window to make the space feel less institutional. His eyes lingered on the bed, and I saw something flicker across his face that I couldn't quite read. "So, how do you want to do this?" he asked, running a hand through his dark hair. "I can sleep on the floor, or we could share the bed if that's not too weird for you. I mean, we're both adults, right? It's just sleeping." The casual way he said it made my chest tighten. Just sleeping, right? As if sharing a bed with the person you'd been secretly in love with for months was ever just about sleep. "The bed's fine," I managed, hoping my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "It's a twin XL, so it's not exactly spacious, but it beats the floor." Marcus grinned, that crooked smile that had been the source of so many of my sleepless nights. "Thanks, man. I really appreciate this. And don't worry, I'm not one of those people who tosses and turns all night. I sleep like the dead." I busied myself rearranging the pillows and pulling back the covers, trying to ignore the way my hands were trembling slightly. This was fine. This was normal. Friends shared beds all the time, especially in college when space was limited and comfort was a luxury. The fact that I'd been harboring feelings for Marcus didn't have to make this complicated. "Do you need to borrow anything?" I asked as he started changing into his sleep clothes. "Toothbrush? Pajamas?" "Nah, I came prepared." He pulled off his hoodie, revealing the fitted t-shirt underneath, and I quickly looked away, focusing intently on adjusting my alarm clock. "Though I should probably warn you, I tend to run warm when I sleep. Hope you don't mind sharing body heat." The comment was innocent enough, the kind of thing anyone might say in this situation, but it sent a jolt of electricity through me nonetheless. I mumbled something noncommittal and headed to the bathroom to brush my teeth, needing a moment to collect myself. When I returned, Marcus was already under the covers, lying on his side facing the wall. The sight of him in my bed, his dark hair stark against my navy blue pillowcase, was almost too much to process. I'd imagined this scenario more times than I cared to admit, usually late at night when loneliness and longing got the better of me. But those fantasies had never included the careful distance he was maintaining, the way he positioned himself as close to the edge of the mattress as possible without falling off. I slipped under the covers on the other side, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies almost touched. The bed was small enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin, could hear the soft rhythm of his breathing as he settled into sleep. I lay rigid on my back, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince my racing heart to slow down. "Thanks again," Marcus murmured into the darkness. "I know this is probably weird." "It's not weird," I lied. We're friends. Friends help each other out. There was a long pause, and I thought he might have fallen asleep. Then his voice came again, softer this time, almost vulnerable. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be someone you're not? Like, all the time? The question caught me off guard. I turned my head to look at him, but he was still facing away from me, his shoulders tense beneath the thin fabric of his t-shirt. What do you mean? I asked carefully. I don't know. Forget it. It's stupid. It's not stupid. I shifted slightly, turning onto my side so I was facing his back. Talk to me. He was quiet for so long that I started to think he'd changed his mind. Then he rolled over, and suddenly we were face to face in the dim light filtering through my blinds. His eyes were serious, searching, and there was something in his expression that I'd never seen before. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, he said quietly. Like I'm playing a role that everyone expects me to play, but it doesn't fit right. Does that make sense? It made more sense than he could possibly know. I'd been playing a role for years, pretending to be the supportive friend who was perfectly content to listen to stories about his romantic conquests, hiding the fact that every casual touch, every shared laugh, every moment of genuine connection between us left me aching for something more. Yeah, I said. It makes sense. I keep thinking about this thing my psychology professor said last week, about how we all wear masks, and sometimes we wear them for so long that we forget what our real face looks like underneath. I wanted to ask him what mask he felt like he was wearing, but something in his tone warned me that pushing too hard might cause him to retreat. Instead, I just listened, letting the silence stretch between us. I've been having these dreams, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Weird dreams that don't make sense. And when I wake up, I feel, I don't know, different. Like something's changing inside me, and I don't know how to stop it. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. There was something in the way he was looking at me, something vulnerable and uncertain that made me wonder if maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one struggling with complicated feelings. Change isn't always bad, I said carefully. What if it is, though? What if it ruins everything? The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and I found myself reaching out without thinking, my hand covering his on the pillow between us. He didn't pull away, and the simple contact sent warmth shooting up my arm. Nothing could ruin our friendship, I said, meaning it completely. Whatever you're going through, whatever you're figuring out about yourself, it doesn't change how much I care about you. He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes reflecting the faint light from the window. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he said, what if I told you that some of those dreams were about you? The words hung in the air between us, loaded with possibility and terror in equal measure. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that my next words could either send us both tumbling into the unknown or pull us both back to safety. What kind of dreams? I asked, my voice barely audible. Marcus closed his eyes, as if he couldn't bear to look at me while he spoke. The kind that make me question everything I thought I knew about myself. The kind that make me wonder if maybe I've been lying to myself for a really long time. I squeezed his hand gently, trying to offer reassurance even as my own world tilted on its axis. Marcus. I know, he said quickly, opening his eyes again. I know this is crazy. I know I'm probably freaking you out. I've never felt this confused about anything in my life. You're not freaking me out, I said, and realized it was true. Terrifying me, maybe. Filling me with hope and fear in equal measure, definitely. But not freaking me out. Can I tell you something? He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. I've been having dreams about you too. The admission hung between us like a bridge, fragile and new but undeniably real. Marcus's breath caught, and I saw something shift in his expression, surprise giving way to something that looked almost like relief. Really? Really? I took a shaky breath, knowing that there was no going back from this moment. For months, actually. Maybe longer. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because you're straight, I said simply. Because I didn't want to lose you as a friend. Because I was terrified that if you knew how I felt, everything would change between us. What if I'm not? He asked quietly. Straight, I mean. What if I don't know what I am anymore? The question hit me like a physical blow, hope and disbelief warring in my chest. Are you saying? I'm saying I don't know, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I'm saying that being here with you, like this, feels more right than anything has felt in a long time. I'm saying that maybe the reason none of my relationships with girls ever worked out is because I was looking for something else entirely. I stared at him, trying to process what he was telling me. This was Marcus, my straight best friend, The guy I'd been secretly in love with for months while convinced that my feelings would never be reciprocated. And now he was lying in my bed, telling me that maybe everything I thought I knew was wrong. "I'm scared," he whispered. "Me too," I admitted. "What happens now?" I didn't have an answer for that. We were in uncharted territory, both of us vulnerable and uncertain, both of us risking everything we'd built together for the possibility of something more. But as I looked into his eyes, saw the trust and hope and fear reflected there, I knew that whatever happened next, we'd face it together. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But maybe we don't have to figure it all out tonight." He nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Can we just stay like this for a while? Just talk?" Of course. We talked until nearly dawn, our voices soft in the darkness, our hands still touching on the pillow between us. We talked about the dreams that had been haunting us both, about the moments over the past months when we'd caught each other staring, about the way our friendship had slowly been shifting into something deeper and more complicated. We talked about fear and hope, and the terrifying possibility that maybe we'd both been hiding from the same truth. As the first light of morning began to filter through my blinds, Marcus finally fell asleep, his breathing evening out as exhaustion overtook him. I lay awake for a long time after that, watching the peaceful expression on his face, trying to absorb the magnitude of what had happened between us. When I woke up several hours later, Marcus was gone. For a moment, panic seized me. Had he regretted everything we'd talked about? Had the harsh light of day made him realize that he'd made a mistake? Then I saw the note on my desk, written in his familiar handwriting. "Had to get to class, but didn't want to wake you. Thank you for last night, for listening, for being you. Can we talk more later?" I meant everything I said. M. I read the note 3 times, relief flooding through me. Whatever this was between us, whatever we were becoming, it wasn't just a middle-of-the-night confession that would be forgotten by morning. It was real, and it was worth exploring, and Marcus wasn't running away from it. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. I went to my classes, took notes, participated in discussions, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment of the night before. I found myself analyzing every word Marcus had said, every look he'd given me, trying to understand what it all meant for us going forward. We'd agreed to meet for dinner at the dining hall, the same table we always claimed near the windows overlooking the quad. I arrived first, my stomach churning with nervous energy, and spent 10 minutes rearranging my food while I waited for him to show up. When Marcus finally appeared, sliding into the seat across from me with his usual easy smile, I felt some of my anxiety ease. He looked tired but not uncomfortable, and when our eyes met, there was a warmth there that hadn't been present before last night. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself." We ate in relative silence for a few minutes, both of us seeming to need time to adjust to this new dynamic between us. Finally, Marcus set down his fork and looked at me directly. "I've been thinking about last night all day," he said. "Good thoughts or bad thoughts?" "Complicated thoughts." He smiled ruefully. "But not bad. Definitely not bad." I felt my shoulders relax slightly. "I was worried you might regret it. What we talked about, I mean. I don't regret it." His voice was firm, certain. It was probably the most honest conversation I've had with anyone in years, including myself. "So where does that leave us?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "I think it leaves us figuring things out as we go. I can't pretend I have all the answers, because I don't. This is all new territory for me." "For me too," I said. "I mean, I've known I was attracted to guys for a while, but this is the first time I've felt this way about someone who might actually feel the same way." "Might." Marcus raised an eyebrow, a teasing glint in his eyes that was both familiar and entirely new. "Do you feel the same way? I mean." The question hung between us, and I held my breath waiting for his answer. Marcus reached across the table, his fingers brushing against mine in a gesture that was barely perceptible to anyone watching but felt monumental to me. "I think I do," he said quietly. "I think I have for a while, actually. I just didn't know how to recognize it for what it was." The words sent a rush of warmth through me, hope and disbelief and pure joy mixing together in my chest. "Really? Really?" He smiled, and it was different from any smile he'd ever given me before, softer and more intimate. "I keep thinking about all those times I found excuses to hang out with you, or how I always felt better when you were around. I told myself it was just friendship, but maybe it was something more all along." We talked for another hour, our conversation flowing more easily now that the initial awkwardness had passed. We discussed what this might mean for us, how we wanted to handle things going forward, what we were and weren't ready for. It was careful, tentative, but honest in a way that felt revolutionary after months of hiding my true feelings. "I don't want to rush into anything," Marcus said as we walked back toward the dorms. "I need time to figure out what this all means for me, for my identity. But I also don't want to pretend that last night didn't happen." "We don't have to rush," I agreed. "We can take this as slow as you need." "What if I want to sleep in your room again tonight?" he asked, and there was something shy in his voice that made my heart skip. Not because of my roommate this time, just because I want to. I stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. "I'm sure that whatever this is between us, I want to explore it. I'm sure that you make me feel more like myself than anyone else ever has. And I'm sure that I don't want to spend another night wondering what it would be like to wake up next to you." The honesty in his words took my breath away. "Okay," I said simply. "Okay. Okay." This time, when we settled into my narrow bed, there was less awkwardness and more intentionality. Marcus didn't position himself at the very edge of the mattress, and I didn't lie rigid on my back staring at the ceiling. Instead, we found ourselves naturally gravitating toward each other, our bodies fitting together in a way that felt both new and inevitable. "Is this okay?" Marcus asked as he settled against my side, his head on my shoulder. "More than okay," I murmured, my arm coming up to wrap around him. We lay like that for a long time, not talking, just enjoying the simple intimacy of being close. I could feel the steady rhythm of Marcus's breathing, could smell the familiar scent of his shampoo, could feel the weight of his body against mine. It was everything I dreamed of, and somehow even better, because it was real and he was choosing it. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said eventually, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Always. When did you first realize you had feelings for me?" I thought about it, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when friendship had shifted into something deeper. "I think it was gradual," I said finally. "But there was this one night in October, remember? We'd been studying for that brutal organic chemistry exam, and we'd been at it for hours. You fell asleep at my desk, and I just sat there watching you sleep, and I realized that I could watch you forever and never get tired of it." Marcus lifted his head to look at me, his eyes soft in the dim light. "I remember that night. I woke up and you'd covered me with your jacket. You looked cold." "I wasn't cold." He smiled. "I was pretending to be asleep because I didn't want the moment to end. I liked having you take care of me." The admission made my chest tight with emotion. "You were pretending?" "For like 20 minutes. I kept waiting for you to wake me up or go to bed yourself, but you just sat there. And I remember thinking that no one had ever looked at me the way you were looking at me that night. How was I looking at you? Like I mattered. Like I was worth watching over." He paused, his fingers tracing absent patterns on my chest. "Like you loved me." The word hung between us, heavy with implication. Neither of us had said it yet, though it had been hovering at the edges of our conversation since the night before. Love was a big word, a scary word, especially when everything between us was still so new and uncertain. "Maybe I did," I said quietly. "Maybe I do." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and I wondered if I'd said too much too soon. Then he pressed a soft kiss to my shoulder, so gentle I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Maybe I do too," he whispered. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and when I woke up the next morning, Marcus was still there. Still choosing to be there. Still choosing me. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful exploration. We didn't tell anyone what was happening between us, not yet, but we stopped pretending that nothing had changed. Marcus started spending most nights in my room, our friendship deepening into something more intimate and complex with each passing day. We talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories from our childhoods, our fears about the future, our dreams and disappointments. Marcus told me about the pressure he'd always felt to be the perfect son, the perfect student, the perfect boyfriend to a string of girls he'd never felt truly connected to. I told him about the loneliness of hiding who I was, the fear that I'd never find someone who could love all of me. "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong," Marcus confessed one night as we lay tangled together in my narrow bed. "Everyone always talks about how confusing it is to question your sexuality, how scary it is to realize you might not be who you thought you were. But this doesn't feel confusing at all. It feels like the first thing that's ever made complete sense." "Maybe that's because it's not about changing who you are," I said, my fingers combing through his hair. "Maybe it's about finally being who you've always been." He turned in my arms to look at me, his eyes serious. "Do you think I've always been gay? Or bi? I keep trying to figure out the label, but nothing seems to fit exactly right." "Does it matter?" I asked. "I mean, labels can be helpful, but they're not everything. What matters is how you feel, what makes you happy, Who you want to be with? I want to be with you, he said simply. Whatever that makes me, I want to be with you. It was around the third week of our new arrangement that Marcus suggested we try going on an actual date. Not just hanging out in my room or studying together in the library, but a real date, the kind where we acknowledged what we were to each other and acted accordingly. There's this little coffee shop downtown, he said, his cheeks flushed with nervous excitement. They have live music on Friday nights, and I thought maybe we could go. Together. As a couple. The words sent a thrill through me. A couple. Were we a couple? We'd been acting like one in private, but we hadn't really discussed what we were to each other, what we wanted this to be. I'd love to, I said, and meant it completely. Friday night found us walking hand in hand down the tree-lined streets of our college town, both of us nervous and excited in equal measure. It was the first time we'd held hands in public, the first time we'd presented ourselves as anything other than friends to the outside world, and the significance of it wasn't lost on either of us. The coffee shop was small and cozy, with mismatched furniture and local artwork covering the walls. We found a table in the corner, close enough to the small stage to hear the acoustic duo that was setting up, but far enough away to have our own private conversation. This is nice, Marcus said, looking around the space with genuine appreciation. I can't believe I've never been here before. I used to come here sometimes when I needed to get away from campus, I said. It's a good place to think. What did you think about? You mostly. The admission slipped out before I could stop it, and I felt my cheeks heat with embarrassment. Sorry, that probably sounds pathetic. It doesn't sound pathetic at all. Marcus reached across the table to take my hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles over my knuckles. It sounds like maybe we were both thinking about each other more than we were willing to admit. The music started then, a haunting melody that filled the space between us with something beautiful and melancholy. We listened in comfortable silence, our hands still linked across the table, both of us lost in our own thoughts. During a break between songs, Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and intimate. I have something I want to tell you. What is it? I called my mom yesterday. I felt my eyebrows rise in surprise. Marcus was close with his family, but he'd been anxious about how they might react to his evolving understanding of his sexuality. We talked about it several times, and I knew he was torn between his desire to be honest and his fear of disappointing them. How did it go? Better than I expected. He smiled, and there was relief in his expression. I didn't tell her about us specifically, but I told her that I was questioning some things about myself, that I might not be exactly who she thought I was. And she said something that really stuck with me. What did she say? She said that she didn't raise me to be straight or gay or anything else. She raised me to be kind and honest and true to myself. And as long as I was those things, she'd be proud of me no matter what. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. That's beautiful. I know I'm not ready to come out to everyone yet, Marcus continued. But knowing that she'll support me when I am, it makes everything feel less scary. I'm so glad, I said, squeezing his hand. You deserve to have people in your life who love you unconditionally. I think I already do, he said, his eyes meeting mine across the table. I think I have you. The words hit me like a physical blow, love and gratitude and overwhelming emotion crashing over me all at once. Marcus. I love you, he said simply, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I know it's fast, and I know everything between us is still new, but I love you. I love how patient you've been with me, how you've never pushed me to be anything other than exactly where I am. I love how safe you make me feel, how right everything is when I'm with you. I love you, and I wanted you to know. I stared at him across the table, this beautiful, brave man who had turned my world upside down in the best possible way. I love you too, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I've loved you for months, and I'll probably love you for the rest of my life. Marcus's smile was radiant, transforming his entire face with joy. Really? Really? He stood up then, moving around the table to my side, and before I could ask what he was doing, he was cupping my face in his hands and kissing me. It was soft and sweet and perfect, our first real kiss, and I could taste the promise of everything we could be together on his lips. When we broke apart, I realized that the entire coffee shop had gone quiet, everyone staring at us with expressions ranging from surprise to delight to complete indifference. Marcus seemed to notice at the same time I did, and for a moment, I saw panic flicker across his face. Then someone in the back of the room started clapping, and the sound spread throughout the space until the entire coffee shop was applauding our moment. Marcus laughed, his face flushed but happy, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead of us, we'd face them together. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of my life. Marcus and I settled into a rhythm that felt natural and right, spending our days together as friends and our nights exploring what it meant to be something more. We studied together, ate meals together, went to parties and movies and campus events as a couple, though we were still selective about who we told about our relationship. Marcus was still figuring out his identity, still learning to navigate what it meant to be in love with a man, but he approached it all with the same thoughtfulness and determination that he brought to everything else in his life. He read books about sexuality and identity, joined an online support group for people questioning their orientation, and slowly began opening up to a few close friends about his journey. "I think I might be bisexual," he told me one evening as we lay in bed together, his head on my chest. "I mean, I was attracted to those girls I dated, but it was different. Shallower, maybe. What I feel for you is deeper, more complete." "That makes sense," I said, my fingers running through his hair. "Sexuality is a spectrum, right? There's no rule that says you have to feel the same way about everyone you're attracted to." "I like that," he said. "The idea that it's a spectrum. It makes me feel less like I have to fit into a specific box." "You don't have to fit into any box," I assured him. "You just have to be yourself." It was around this time that we decided to tell our families about our relationship. I'd been out to my parents since high school, and while they'd been supportive, they'd also been worried about my happiness, about whether I'd ever find someone who could love me the way I deserved. I couldn't wait to introduce them to Marcus, to show them that their worries had been unfounded. Marcus was more nervous about telling his family, despite his mother's supportive response to his initial conversation about questioning his identity. But when we finally made the trip home for Thanksgiving break, his parents welcomed me with open arms, treating me not as their son's friend, but as their son's partner. "We can see how happy you make him," his mother told me privately while Marcus and his father were doing dishes after dinner. "That's all we've ever wanted for him, you know? For him to find someone who makes him light up the way you do." Christmas break brought its own challenges and joys. We spent time with both of our families, navigating the sometimes awkward but ultimately loving process of integrating our relationship into our existing family dynamics. We exchanged gifts, simple things that carried deep meaning, and spent New Year's Eve curled up together in my childhood bedroom, talking about our hopes for the coming year. "I want to move in together," Marcus said as midnight approached. "I know it's a big step, but I'm tired of having to sneak around in the dorms. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep in your arms every night." "Are you sure?" I asked, though my heart was already racing with excitement at the possibility. "I'm sure." He turned in my arms to face me, his eyes serious and full of love. "I'm sure about you, about us, about the life I want to build with you. If you'll have me." "Always," I said, kissing him as the clock struck midnight and the new year began. "Always." We found a small apartment off campus for the spring semester, a cozy one-bedroom place with big windows and hardwood floors that felt like home the moment we walked through the door. Moving in together was an adjustment, learning to navigate shared space and domestic routines, but it was also wonderful in ways I hadn't expected. There was something magical about the mundane moments we shared, making coffee together in the mornings, studying at opposite ends of our small couch, grocery shopping and cooking dinner, and falling asleep to the sound of each other's breathing. These were the moments I dreamed of during all those months of secret longing, and they were even better than I'd imagined. "I can't believe this is my life now," Marcus said one evening as we sat on our tiny balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. 6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. Now everything's different, and somehow everything's better. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. "The way everything changed between us?" "Never." His response was immediate and firm. "Even when it's been scary or confusing, I've never regretted it. How could I regret finding the person I'm meant to be with?" "Is that what I am? The person you're meant to be with?" Marcus turned to look at me, his eyes soft with love and certainty. "I think you might be the person I'm meant to be with for the rest of my life." The words sent a thrill through me, hope and love, and the promise of a future I'd never dared to imagine. "I love you," I said, because it was the only response that felt adequate. "I love you too," he said, leaning over to kiss me as the sun disappeared behind the horizon. More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone. As spring turned into summer and our first year together drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed since that night when Marcus had asked to sleep in my room, just this once. What had started as a simple favor for a friend had become the foundation of the most important relationship of my life. We'd both grown and changed over the course of our time together, Marcus becoming more comfortable with his identity and more confident in his place in the world, and me learning what it meant to be truly known and loved by another person. We'd faced challenges and celebrated victories, had fights and reconciliations, and through it all, we'd chosen each other again and again. Do you remember that first night? Marcus asked as we lay in our bed on the anniversary of that initial sleepover. When I asked if I could crash in your room? How could I forget? I keep thinking about how different things might have been if I hadn't texted you that night. If I just dealt with the noise from my roommate or found somewhere else to sleep. But you did text me, I pointed out. And here we are. Here we are, he agreed, pulling me closer. Do you think we would have figured it out eventually? Even if that night hadn't happened? I considered the question seriously. I think so. I think what we have was inevitable, somehow. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe it would have happened differently, but I think we would have found our way to each other. I like that, Marcus said, his voice drowsy with approaching sleep. The idea that we were always meant to find each other. Me too. As I listened to his breathing even out and felt his body relax against mine, I thought about all the nights we'd spent like this over the past year, all the conversations and confessions and quiet moments of connection. I thought about how brave Marcus had been in questioning everything he thought he knew about himself, how patient we'd both been in navigating the uncertain territory of a relationship that had started as friendship and blossomed into something deeper. Most of all, I thought about how grateful I was for that first night, for Marcus's courage in reaching out when he needed something, for my own decision to say yes without hesitation. One simple text message had changed both of our lives in ways we never could have anticipated, setting us on a path toward love and understanding and a future we were building together one day at a time. Just this once, he'd said that first night. But as I held him close in the darkness of our shared bedroom, I knew that what we'd found together was anything but temporary. It was forever, or as close to forever as two people could promise each other. It was love in its truest form, built on friendship and trust and the courage to be vulnerable with another person. And it had all started with a simple request to share a bed for one night, a request that had opened the door to everything we'd become and everything we still hope to be. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives come disguised as ordinary favors, as simple acts of kindness between friends. Sometimes love begins with nothing more than the willingness to make room for another person in your space, in your life, in your heart. As sleep finally claimed me, I smiled into the darkness, thinking about how perfectly imperfect our love story was, how it had unfolded not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with quiet conversations and gentle discoveries and the gradual realization that sometimes the person you're meant to love has been right there beside you all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Marcus stirred in his sleep, his arm tightening around me, and I pressed a soft kiss to the top of his head. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, new opportunities to choose each other and build the life we wanted together. But tonight, we were exactly where we belonged, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the love we'd been brave enough to claim and strong enough to nurture. Just this once had become forever, and I couldn't imagine wanting it any other way.